Morning all, let's have a look at a pearl of a game this morning. It became known as the Pearl of Wijk-aan-Zee. It was played in the Open Tournament of Wijk-aan-Zee 1995 between two strong grandmasters. Roberto Cifuentes Parada playing white. He became a GM in 1991, 4 years prior to this game. He was Chilean champion 1982, 3, 4, 5, 6. And playing black, a very strong grandmaster, Vadim Zivjagintsev, one of the top Russian grandmasters today, in the top 20. He's around 2680 FIDE in 2012. Okay, so let's see. D4 from Roberto, and we see E6 from Vadim. After knight F3, D5, C4, knight F6. After knight C3, we see the game heading to the semi-Slav defense variation, the solid triangle. Does it offer black a creative game, this solid opening? Well, let's have a look at this game as an example. E3, okay, it does close in the bishop, but it does support C4 quite naturally. Knight BD7, Queen C2, okay, and we've seen this idea before, that this delay might mean that actually a G4 might be on the cards for Rook G1 if the bishop moves. It's like weakness in the last move. We've seen that in another game. That's an interesting theoretical line. But here actually black plays B6, not moving the bishop on F8 for a moment. Bishop E2, Bishop B7 now. And now white castles, so there's going to be no crazy ideas from white. Not yet. So Bishop E7, finally, moving that bishop. Rook D1. And after castles, now E4, which looks as though it's a natural move to extend the scope of the bishop. Maybe get E5 as a square later, frontal pressure on E5, maybe D5 as a break later if black takes. But black did take. What else? He doesn't want to allow E5 driving away this defensive knight. So D takes E4, knight takes E4. Okay, Queen C7. Black's position is compact and solid and looks forward to the move C5 to liberate the bishop, which is usually the problem bishop of, say, the Queen's Gambit declined. Here with C5, black's pieces would seem to be quite good. And in fact, after knight C3, which indicates, maybe there's some threat like knight B5 possible on C5, but black plays C5 anyway. It's a bit harmless, possibly in this position. And in fact, the real intention of knight C3 is shown now. D5, it supports D5, which kind of cuts out that bishop from the diagonal. Okay, so should black have played this C5, his bishop here is also locked in by his own pawn, and his knight can't use the C5 square. Well, black has still an energetic plan here. He first takes on D5, and here he plays the move A6. So he's got a 3-2 pawn majority, so he wants to try and use that, and maybe later either play for C4 or maybe even B4. But white has an idea now as well. Knight H4 to get a knight to F5, which looks quite dangerous. D6 will be threatened. Black stops that now with G6, which does weaken some dark squares around the king, and invites this next move, Bishop H6. Rook F E8. Okay, and now after Queen D2, again it seems D6 is now a threat, forking Queen and Bishop. That's stopped now with Bishop D6 attacking H2. That's defended with G3, a slight compromise, light square weaknesses, perhaps. This diagonal though is shut down by that pawn, but B5 now threatening this D5 pawn now indirectly with B4 to undermine white's protection of D5. So D5 needs to be reinforced. It's reinforced with Bishop F3, which seems natural enough. The knight can always make use of G2 here, maybe even exchange off dark square bishops if needed. B4, and now knight e2, wanting to go to the rim. On e2 it does also support bishop f4 as well, but a slight downside, slight weakness of the last move. Knight e4, the knight pounces with tempo onto the e4 square. It's attacked and now defended again. So black has a nice position, it seems, with these knights protecting each other in the centre, with pressure now on d5, and this bishop blocked from protecting d5 for the moment. But actually tactically it's not on here. White plays knight g2. If black dares to take on d5, something like just rook takes d5, if bishop takes d5, knight takes d5, this knight will be loose. But we'll check this out in detail in the second pass. It seems e4 is loose if black tries to win d5. So queen d7 now is played, which potentially introduces queen h3 as an idea, attacking the bishop on h6, and also maybe h2 can be used with knight g4 later. So the move here played is knight e3. Not worried, it seems, by queen h3. On queen h3 in this position, well, knight e3 is stopping any knight g4s in any case. So on queen h3, possibly just bishop f4 is okay without any problem. In the game, black actually just played rook ad8. And the bishop extinguishes queen h3 now with bishop g2, just protecting h3 as well. And it seems okay. White can relax. He's covered h3. g4 is sort of covered. Maybe he can think about taking over this diagonal later. But f2 looks a bit loose actually, a bit of a concern maybe. That's a soft spot. And can you actually guess what black plays in this position? If I give you 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, actually a little bit of a clue given. Knight takes f2. It is a bit of a soft spot. The king has to recapture and come out to play a little bit. So king takes f2. Now what's the continuation? Surely g4 is under control, so there's no like check to win the bishop. Nothing like that, surely. Can you guess what black plays in this position? If I give you 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, rook takes e3. Does the king want to come out any further? Possibly not. Knight g4 looks strong, but there might be even other stronger moves as well in that position, which we need to check out in the second pass. White just plays bishop takes e3, and this is really annoying now, knight g4 check. If the king retreats, then knight takes e3, then either winning the exchange or playing like Fischer once did with knight takes g2 just to weaken the diagonal might be possible. So we really need to check that out as well, king g1. But in the game, king f3 was played, and it seems black already with king f3 is given, if he wants a drawing option, basically. Check. Is it going to be a perpetual check draw now? Or is black going to try for more in this position? If we look at the material investments so far, okay. Black is currently a rook down because 3 minor pieces each, and white has 2 rooks, black has 1 rook. So is he justified in playing on in this position? Well, can you guess black's next move here if I give you 10 seconds starting from now? Okay, because he does play on. But how to continue the attack? Black played queen e6, which is a double attack really on d5, making use of the pin. That can't take the queen. Double attack here And also maybe bishop takes d5 is very useful. So that's pretty annoying. Well, the first threat is dealt with. The bishop moves to f4. And it looks as though, maybe in this position, bishop takes d5, maybe white can afford to take, and then maybe take on g4. Possibly, if he's not getting mated. Maybe it's a queen h5 there, that's mate. Or maybe queen e4. That's really something we need to check out in the second pass. It's dangerous stuff. Bishop takes d5. So rook takes d5, queen takes. Possibly king g4, that's queen h5. Queen e4 we need to check out. But black actually didn't take on d5. Black now played, perhaps you'd consider this actually a very surprising move. In fact, I want to see if you can find it. If I give you 10 seconds here, starting from now. Okay. I think this is going to be a difficult one to find. It doesn't apparently threaten anything. Rook e8. You might think, what on earth is this? Well, actually, it does increase the effectiveness of bishop d5 as a threat, because we've got the e file under more surveillance from the rook now. So there'll be no queen e4 defense. That's one thing. e2, of course, seems to be adequately protected. But yeah, this bishop d5 is made more effective at the very least. So even though it might not be directly threatening anything, you might think, well, d5, okay, can white sort out the d5 issue while still holding on to the knight? Now this next move would seem to tick both boxes, to hold on to d5 and to protect the knight. So queen c4, surely that makes the rook e8 not so hot. What is black doing in this position now? Wasn't that the silent threat? Just bishop takes d5 there from rook e8. Well, actually, there's a very interesting resource in this position. If I give you 10 seconds here, you might want to pause the video and try and find the next move, and also, I don't know, try and work out some of the game continuation as well. So 50 points for the next move, but 500 for the game continuation after that, starting from now. Okay, queen e3 check, an outrageous forcing move. You might think, what is this about? What on earth is this? You might ask. Well, if the queen isn't taken, it would seem that perhaps bishop c8 is dangerous. And of course we'll have to have a look at this in the second pass. There might be a much stronger move than bishop c8. But this looks fairly dangerous intuitively, this position. But what would be the actual game continuation? Possibly here, bishop e7. And then how does white defend this particular position? It's very difficult. Bishop g5 would just make the white king. So, okay, so maybe the king can't play king takes g4, which means take the queen. Okay? And surely that's the improvement now. Taking the queen. Well, king takes g4. Is it an improvement? Is this an improvement? Black's next move is still bishop c8 check. So there's a couple of options here, at least. King h4 or king g5. Now if we play king h4, then again there seems to be bishop e7, and that actually mates here. These two bishops are working very well on these diagonals. In the game actually, king g5 was played, which keeps the king a reverse gear option. If bishop e7, there's king f4, you might think. Okay, so did black really calculate this very well? What did black have up his sleeve in this position? You might wonder. Well, possibly there might be more than one winning move, in fact, here. We'll have to check this out in the second pass for sure. But Black seems to play a very convincing move. Can you guess? Well, can you guess Black's move? If I give you 10 seconds here. Okay. Black chose h6 check. Now, the king hasn't got too many great options. If it goes to f6, it would seem that bishop e7 is actually mate, so that's not too hot. Can't go into reverse, all the squares are covered, has to take. And the final move of the game, now the king is on h6, visiting, paying a visit, social visit to the black king. But what does black play here? In this position, if I give you 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, Black played rook e5, and it's got dual threats now. The rook is cutting the king's reverse retreat, so bishop f8 seems threatened, as well as actually rook h5 as well, to which white seems to be unable to defend both. Let's check this out now. So white actually resigned here in this position. So for example, queen h4, we have bishop f8 as mate. Well, it seems difficult to do anything about that, really. Okay. Wow. It is a mate next move, whatever white does. So let's go back to see where did actually white go wrong, for those interested technically in this game. So b6 and then bishop b7, white castles. This e4, which looks logical. Black's getting in this c5 here, which looks dampened by d5, because that was the whole point of retreating the knight back. Surely white has logical play here. He hasn't done much wrong, surely. But in fact, the engine actually likes black already, slightly. So what has actually gone wrong? Surely the natural e4 move can't be that bad, can it? If h3, if black played c5 here, there might be an option of, okay, taking, just keeping solid, really. It seems c5 isn't as effective here. White has more fortified control over the dark squares in this position. It seems with the e4 break, which seems entirely logical and natural in many respects, technically black somehow is getting the advantage here with c5. So d5, although it seems to promise putting a dampener on the bishop on b7, black has that 3-2 pawn majority. Okay, white has the f5 square as well to create weaknesses with. But still, black technically seems better already. d6 threatens, so bishop d6 good move. b5 good move. And then this b4 takes a little bit of control of the centre, with this knight coming now to e4. And maybe even that's not even the best move. Knight e5. Knight fg4. It seems black is doing well. He's got mobile pawns here with c4 as well. So black already stood okay here. Stood very well. I guess, yeah, this is out of the question to take on d5 because of rook d5, I guess. Rook takes d5, knight takes, bishop takes e4. Is much better for white, obviously winning material. So the knight is pointing at f2 though here. So after queen d7, we saw knight e3. For a moment, you know, there's no problem here on f2, it seems. So why is there a problem after bishop g2 and not in this position, you might ask? Well, if knight takes f2, let's check this out here. King takes. It seems black might actually have an equal position with almost with queen h3, or is it the defense? Bishop f4. It's not as good. It's just simply not as good as the game here, because actually the bishop is eyeing g4, of course. So rook takes e3 is going to be far less effective. So in a way, this is a weakness of the last move. When the casual rook ad8 was played, provoking bishop g2, which seems, again, an entirely natural move to play bishop g2 in many respects, because it would seem that the knight is already covering g4. So in principle, it seems g4 is covered in this position after bishop g2. It's how can that be classed as a weakness of the last move if g4, there's already a centralized knight covering g4. But black has a spare knight to throw in here, so he can sack one knight and then sack the exchange here, bang, and the engine really likes rook takes e3. This is big trouble now. If the king took, check, taking, and this is okay for black. Black has very good compensation for the exchange indeed. Queen e7 or queen b5 looks very good for black. White's king is not too safe here. d5 is about to drop off. Doesn't look too hot. Okay, and you might think, well, it's only one pawn, but it's just huge, this position. Let's continue a little bit just to demonstrate. So say bishop a6, queen d6. Now I think c4 will be a threat. c4, rook e8. Black's advantage can increase basically quite comfortably soon. Well, if white has to give up the exchange like that, then definitely. So we'll rewind. So basically this king takes e3 might not be too great either, inviting knight g4. So bishop takes e3. I mean, technically it's probably the best move, but it's not the move white really wants to play. So he invited in this position basically a draw. If black wanted a draw by perpetual, if he doesn't go for the perpetual again, isn't it just horrendous? If king g1, it's just horrendous. Actually, black can just win back the exchange, or even knight g2 is strong as well. Might even actually be the strongest, like the Fischer knight, classic knight takes g2. This diagonal seems too weak. So bishop takes d5 here. It's possible, because if queen takes, there's bishop d4 check here, winning the queen. If rook takes, well, this position, no, that's all right for. Hold on a sec. No, forget bishop d4. That's a blunder. Queen takes d5, and black will be better here. So, okay. So white steps out and offers basically a draw with king f3. Black's not interested. He goes to this position, back to this position, and then he plays queen e6. Looks as though the engine's only looking at two moves here. Maybe I've biased it at depth 16. Okay. So is this next move not worthy? This is depth 16. It's looking at knight h2 check or knight e5. I think I might have skipped it before, confusing the engine actually, to be honest. In this position, it did find queen e6 as slightly better for black. So we get that position again, queen e6 played, and now it's looking at more deeply and it's getting better and better for black. So bishop f4 was the move played. It seems bishop c1 is worth checking out. So, in this position, for some reason, h5 stands out. It does support the knight and probably means queen e3 in the future will be more dangerous. Let's have a look at h5. Well, actually, also, no, it immediately means, pardon me, that bishop takes d5 is now renewed as a major threat. So the king is locked down and can't take on g4 now. So say bishop h3, bishop takes d5. This is getting unpleasant. Take on e4, play knight f2, just win the bishop back. And that's okay for black, that's very good. +3. Okay, so h5, very powerful move in this position, very calm if the bishop did retreat. But the bishop didn't retreat, went to f4. That's becoming massive, the advantage. Mate in 9 with rook e8. Mate in 9. Fourth mate in 9. The engine's verdict. So that's pretty sound now after rook e8. So queen c4 was chosen. Quickening the mate a bit, apparently. So we have mate in 6. Forced mate in 6. Mate in 4 now. King getting sucked up the board. One question, was f6 also playable or not? No. King h4 apparently. And white might have time to wriggle out of this now. Rook e5 threatening mate. And okay, would white really escape? Why would queen g4, you might ask, giving up the queen? That is better for white, but why not g4? G4, it's still mate in 2. Check. And then g5. But actually, in this position, white would save himself with queen g4. So with check, king h3. If taking, well, smoke's cleared a bit. And white's a rook up. So need to be very careful here, not to play f6. h6, much better, mate in 3. h6 check, bringing the king further up to h6 and then locking the door shut behind the king with rook e5. Threatening now rook h5 and bishop f8. Okay, and so that game is the Pearl of Wee Kan Sze. That's what it's known as. I hope you enjoyed it. I think there's some instructive ideas about subtle weaknesses of the last move. How g4 was like subtly weakened by this retreat, which looked intuitive. We find out all the time by brilliant games as well that intuitive looking moves often fell for the invisible resources in the position, and those are often linked with just simply weaknesses of the last move. Okay, but this was Brilliancy. I hope you enjoyed it. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.